Coming up on Talking Points, Israel showing no signs of backing down following its temporary ceasefire, where the war stands tonight.
And George Santos has finally been expelled from Congress. What's next for New York's 3rd District?
And a Montana TikTok ban blocked. Why it was deemed unconstitutional. That and more now on Talking Points. It's been nearly 2 months since Hamas launched its surprise attack on Israel. Welcome into Talking Points. I'm Chilekasi, Adele.
And I'm Jake Morel. We start with our ongoing coverage of the Israel-Hamas conflict.
Fighting has continued in the Middle East. Over the week-long ceasefire, Hamas released over 100 hostages and Israel released over 200 Palestinian prisoners.
Since Friday, the Gaza Health Authority has reported death tolls in the hundreds. Talking Points analyst Harrison Calder is here to give us an update on what has taken place since the fighting picked back up. Harrison, good evening.
Jake, Chile, great to be on with you guys tonight. War between Israel and Hamas has resumed, with Israel widening their campaign. After capturing large parts of northern Gaza since late October, Israeli troops have now advanced to the last section of the territory that has been under full Hamas control. The ceasefire was set to end at 7 local time on Friday, but the IDF reported they heard sirens in communities near the Gaza Strip. Israel's military wasn't wasting any time announcing that the fighting resumed an hour later. They also accused Hamas of violating the term agreement. There was a death toll that increased the concern of many, including the president of the ICRC. Let's take a look what she said via Twitter. So she said, I have arrived in Gaza where people's suffering is intolerable. I repeat our urgent call for civilians to be protected in line with the laws of war in aid to be impeded. The hostages must be released and ICRC allowed to safely visit them. So you see that tweet there via X. And yeah, the airstrikes were sent out earlier today that hit around 200 targets in Gaza, some even taking out notable Hamas figures. One of the strikes, sent out by Israeli security agency Shin Bet, killed the alleged commander of Hamas that was responsible for carrying out the raids that happened during the initial attack. Let's take a look at the statement from Shin Bet's leader. He says, the cabinet set us a goal in layman's terms, to eliminate Hamas, and we are committed to doing so. It will take a few years, but we will be there to do it. Unfortunately, on October 7th, we were unable to do so. I think we are on an upward trend. So in the statement, he references October 7th, the day Hamas attacked Israel, with details showing evidence towards acts of sexual violence. Israeli authorities say they are investigating reports of sexual assault and have compiled considerable evidence from witnesses, emergency medical workers, and crime scene photographs that were taken. Hamas officials have denied the reports of sexual violence and said that any atrocities were committed by other armed groups that poured into Israel. Chile, Jake?
Harrison, civilian deaths, they continue to rise, tons of infrastructure being destroyed. What's being done to solve the humanitarian crisis?
Yeah, so there's a lot of discussions about how to solve these tough issues, and there's so much going on. The writing's on the wall that this is a very serious problem, and we've seen the ICRC come in, sending in their leaders, really trying to work on how to solve these problems, and they haven't found a ton. There's been huge problems in southern Gaza. Just a few months ago, there were 1 million people in southern Gaza. There's now 2 million because so many people have had to leave the Gaza Strip to come into southern Gaza, and it's really created a huge problem.
Harrison, how is the U.S. responding to the resume in war?
Yeah, the U.S. is trying to do a lot, but we've seen a lot within the White House change on their opinions. President Biden was just a few days ago caught saying, according to the Washington Post, about how he secretly was apologizing to some Muslim leaders and other people in the administration, such as Anthony Blinken, publicly declaring that a Palestinian Authority would be the right group to lead or to take care of the Gaza Strip, and that would definitely show a lot of changes potentially about how the White House views this. Others have even declined to comment on the situation. So clearly the White House has had some changes, and when it comes to possibly resuming this, or how they want to look at resuming this, there's going to be a lot to see what they do.
Lastly here, Harrison, Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan, other foreign leaders saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is corrupt. What's leading to them saying this?
Yeah, so they've seen a lot going on with Netanyahu. Of course, Erdogan has been a big part, and he's been in the Middle East to see a lot of these issues. And so, according to Gaza's health ministry, there's been 15,500 people killed since this has all started, and that's been a huge number. And we've also seen that Erdogan has said that he does not believe Hamas is a terrorist organization, and that has played a huge role in why he is so avid in taking the side against Netanyahu here. And he also has been very avid to point out that a lot of the countries, especially in the Western world, that are supporting Israel are making mistakes and not doing the right thing here. So a lot has been going on, and we'll see what plays out in the coming weeks.
Harrison Calder, thank you. Next on Talking Points, George Santos ousted from Congress. The latest reactions from here in New York State. Stick with us.
Taking care of a family member can lead to plenty of questions. Fortunately, there's a place to get the answers, for them and for you. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Hey there, welcome back into Talking Points. You are looking at an X post from New York Governor Kathy Hochul. She says the people of Long Island deserve better following George Santos' expulsion from Congress this past Friday.
Let's talk about the timeline of events. Santos was expelled this past Friday from Congress in a landslide vote. He was the 6th member of the House of Representatives to ever be removed.
Now, Governor Hochul has until next Monday to announce a special election in New York's 3rd Congressional District. With more on the potential date and the details of our race is Peter Barry. Peter, thanks for joining us tonight. Let's start. Potential date with this election. When could we expect it to take place? And you know anything about anybody putting their hat in the ring yet?
Chile, Jake, it's great to be on tonight. So we just saw Santos being expelled this past Friday, but we're going to have to wait another week until Hochul actually calls this special election, and then another 70 to 80 days for the election to actually happen. But you may be asking, without primaries, how are we going to have a candidate for this election? Well, the Nassau County chairs, Jay Jacobs, the Democrat, and Joe Cairo, the Republican, will have to interview from 24 candidates and pick which candidate is fit for this election. So let's take a look at some of the notable candidates here. Let's start on the Republican line. We have current State Senator Jack Martins, who is a former mayor of Mineola, which is a big town in Nassau County, and we also have Mazi Pilip, who is a current county legislator in Nassau County. They both won re-election, and they are both prominent figures within Nassau County. But let's transition over to the Democratic line. So first we have former Congressman Tom Suozzi, who left his seat in New York 3rd because he wanted to primary Hochul in the gubernatorial race, but he only got around 12% of the vote in the primary. Next, we have former State Senator Anna Kaplan, who has transitioned a seat from red to blue before, and we also have Bob Zimmerman, who got beat by Santos 54 to 46 in 2022. But it's going to be a tight turnaround for any of these candidates.
Yeah, Peter, speaking speaking of a race between any of those candidates, if you look at some recent polling, one from the Cook Political Report that says this district is considered to be a toss-up for 2024, how likely is that the case? Is it actually 50-50?
So this district is very interesting. Back in 2022, it was a +10 Biden district, and the Democrats have had a massive foothold for this district for 40 years. But we saw a huge Republican resurgence, especially in the 2021, 22, and 23 election cycles, such as Nassau County executive race. Bruce Blakeman actually beat Democratic incumbent Laura Curran by nearly 2,000 votes back in 2021. And we also saw in my hometown of the town of North Hempstead, Jen DeSena, the town supervisor, beating any Democratic challenger in 2021, and in 2023 winning re-election, bringing more Republicans with her into town, taking back the town in 32 years.
Peter, we've gone forward a little bit. Let's go back a little bit. Go back in time. Friday, George Santos, embattled congressman, now expelled former Congressman George Santos. Tell us about some of those legal issues that he's still facing.
So we have to remember these are all allegations against George Santos, but he is facing 23 charges consisting of money laundering and campaign misuse of campaign funds. And he could see we could see a plea deal or him going up to jail for up to 22 years. His court date is going to be on December 12th, and his actual trial date is going to be on September 9th of 2024.
Peter Barry, thank you so much. Another GOP long-shot presidential candidate is out. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum announced this morning that he's suspending his campaign.
Now, despite reaching the first two primary debate stages, Burgum failed to make the third debate due to low polling numbers. The 67-year-old had piled millions of his own dollars into his campaign.
Burgum focused his campaign around the economy, energy, national security, and Chinese influence. In a statement released hours ago, Burgum did not endorse another candidate in the primary.
Now let's stick with the campaign trail. The fourth GOP primary debate takes place this Wednesday. News Nation will be hosting the debate from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Our Luke Welch joins us now with our weekly 2024 update. I feel like there's been a lot of these going on as we approach the primaries, as we approach the 2024 election. Can you tell us what we're going to see, and if any of it could potentially be different than what we've seen before?
Well, I think one thing we'll see that's different is that this is the first ever presidential primary debate, held in the state of Alabama, which is historic. But something that we're not going to see is Donald Trump. He has stated that he is not going to be attending the debate itself, but we will see the likes of Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, characters we've seen at all the past ones. But Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, is questionable. He has not seemed to gain enough support from voters in enough states, whether that's financially or vowed support, to enter the debate. But some key talking points that will be stated in the debate, which for sure will be abortion. Alabama was such a crucial state in the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Other female-specific issues, the three women hosts, we had Megyn Kelly up there. Some youth-specific issues in terms of student debt, health care, job market, and economy outlook. I mean, this is held on Alabama's campus. It was supposed to be held in the basketball arena, but was moved to a 1,000-seat concert hall in terms of protests. But let's take a look at these poll numbers. We see Donald Trump at 60%, Ron DeSantis at 12%, a little over 12%, Nikki Haley sitting just under 10%, Vivek Ramaswamy at 5.1%, and Chris Christie at 2.9%. And I think former Governor Christie is going to hope that this is enough to put him in the debate itself. But as I said, it was moved to a 1,000-seat concert hall in terms of hoping to prevent protests that have already been scheduled by groups, left-wing groups, at the University of Alabama.
Luke, so interesting you mentioned the University of Alabama sneaking into the college football playoff yesterday.
Right.
So we're talking consolation, though, in this debate. We see Donald Trump still crushing the competition. Let's talk Florida State consolation here. It appeared at the beginning of this primary that we saw DeSantis was the clear number 2, and it wasn't even close. It was Trump, then DeSantis, then everybody else. But Nikki Haley has made serious gains on him, especially after a couple of these debates. How can she overtake him heading into Iowa in January?
Well, as we just saw in that poll, DeSantis is only a little over 3 points ahead of Haley, but she is far from backing down. We saw a few weeks ago mentioning that she is putting $10 million into her advertising funding. And DeSantis seems to be focused on the man of the hour in Donald Trump, and Haley seems to have her eye on the prize, focused on policy. What's really going to be crucial in the primary, maybe not the actual presidential election, is the moderate conservatives in states like in the Northeast, in the Midwest, in the Northwest. Haley is a sensible, socially moderate conservative who can reach out to these educated voters and try to pull them in to a seemingly divided Congress in terms of voting. Another helpful factor, war is on the topic of everyone's mind right now in Israel, in Ukraine. International relations is going to be something crucial for a nominee of the Republican presidential candidate. She served as the UN ambassador under Donald Trump previously. But let's talk a little bit why about second place is so important. Trump has all of these legal woes, Chile.
Yeah, and Luke, you know, I think one thing that's interesting here, we talk about Nikki Haley trying to make this run, potentially trying to go up at the top. It doesn't look likely right now, but I think you contrast that with what's happening in the Democratic Party right now. You have President Biden, who, you know, by some accounts, by polling numbers, he's struggling.
Yeah, I mean, we saw from Real Clear Politics, that Biden his job approval is 39.9, roughly 40% approving. We see 55.4% disapprove. And what exactly are the cause of this? Inflation is down roughly 0.5% over the past few months. Unemployment has been sitting steady under 4% for nearly 2 years now. So it seems to be directly related to foreign relations. We've seen articles posted, swing state Muslim leaders planning to abandon Biden in 2024. So the question is that are these voters that he's losing in Muslim, highly dense states like Wisconsin, like Michigan, like Ohio, going to prove as tough as Trump's legal scares?
That's a really interesting point there you mentioned. There have been some people on social media circles saying they're rethinking, some people in the Muslim community particularly, rethinking their decision in the midst of all of what's gone on in the Middle East. But Luke Welch, thank you so much. After the break, Montana's ban on TikTok ruled unconstitutional. But why? When Talking Points returns in 90 seconds.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Montana was set to ban the popular social media app TikTok in January, but that's not happening anymore. In a major win for the platform, a U.S. district court ruled that the ban would be unconstitutional. And here with the analysis is our Ethan Kraut. Ethan, let's start with the question that we're all thinking about. Why was this ban ruled unconstitutional?
So first, it's important to note that this is a temporary ruling, and a permanent ruling is expected to come as the case works through the courts. Now, U.S. District Judge Donald Malloy noted that the ban was too fixated on Chinese influence. Now, Judge Malloy wrote, quote, "Despite the state's attempt to defend SB 419 as a consumer protection bill, the current record leaves little doubt that Montana's legislature and Attorney General were more interested in targeting China's ostensible role in TikTok than with protecting Montana's consumers," end quote. He would also go on to say that the ban oversteps power and infringes on the constitutional right of users and businesses.
Hey, Ethan, let's talk about the national implications of this here. There's a bipartisan bill being discussed in the Senate right now. It's called the Restrict Act. Now, how does this ruling impact the future of this potential bill?
So the Restrict Act allows the Department of Commerce to identify and block any transactions that are with, quote, foreign adversaries. Now this would include China, Cuba, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and Venezuela. Now critics of the bill fear that this would give President Biden too much power, as it will be ultimately up to him and his administration onto what apps can be taken off the App Store. The Montana ruling does set a precedent that a TikTok ban is unconstitutional. However, the bill does not explicitly name TikTok or any other apps. So it is unclear if this would lead to, if this would make a difference if the Restrict Act was challenged in any court. Now, as for now, the Biden administration has come out in support of the act, and congressmen and women are looking to keep the bill alive in the Senate.
Ethan, you've mentioned the Biden administration. Let's talk about their national security review. The White House told TikTok earlier this year that the app either needs to be sold or face a ban in the U.S. Is that still the case today?
Yeah, so the Biden administration is still against, or has many concerns with TikTok and their ties to the Chinese government. They are still in favor of a sale. However, it's unclear if that is still constitutional after the Montana ruling. However, they are looking to, as I said, support the Restrict Act, and they have signed multiple bills banning TikTok on federal devices, such as the No TikTok on Federal Devices Act, which does exactly as its name implies. It bans TikTok on all federal devices, and we've seen similar bans in 34 different states.
The battle continues over what has become a heated topic over the past few years. Ethan Kraut, thank you so much. Former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor has died at the age of 93. Talking Points analyst Ronnie Perillo joins us now with the justice's legacy both on and off the bench.
Chile, thanks. Well, Sandra Day O'Connor was the first woman appointed to the High Court back in 1981 by President Ronald Reagan, and the nomination fulfilled one of his campaign promises of installing a female justice on the bench. She served on the court for over 2 decades and was often called the most powerful woman in America, with SCOTUS being referred to many times over the justice's tenure as, quote, her court. The Arizona native is perhaps most known for trying to find a middle ground on controversial issues such as abortion, affirmative action, and religion. A strong supporter of federalism, O'Connor believed that state and federal powers should be kept separate, notably regretting SCOTUS ever taking up the Bush versus Gore election decision call in 2000, which ended the race, declaring Bush the victor. She said years later that the court's reputation suffered as a result of it getting involved. She was an ardent supporter of affirmative action in academic admissions, saying its benefits were, quote, not theoretical, but real. On abortion, the justice was staunchly pro-life, but was willing to not just acknowledge other opinions, but even to rule in favor of them. O'Connor ruled in 1992 that early-term abortion rights should be upheld, as striking them down would impact personal freedom. After stepping down from the court in 2006, she spent her years back in the American Southwest, caring for her ill husband and delivering guest lectures. But O'Connor has a connection to Syracuse. Chancellor Kent Syverud clerked for O'Connor during the early years of her term in the nation's capital back in the 1980s. CitrusTV reached out to the chancellor for comment. He responded with his praise, saying in part, most people will remember Sandra Day O'Connor as a trailblazer, being the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court. While true, I knew her as so much more. She was a brilliant, principled, and deeply decent human being who worked incredibly hard and effectively all her life for what she believed in. Democracy, the rule of law, and a civil society where everyone has an equal chance to excel and contribute. She was also the best boss and mentor a person could ask for. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to work with her, learn from her, and know her as a friend. And O'Connor passed away peacefully at her home in Arizona on Friday. The Supreme Court says her death was due to complications with dementia. The former justice stepped back from the public spotlight in 2018 after she revealed doctors had diagnosed her with the early stages of Alzheimer's. O'Connor's funeral plans have not yet been released, but in a 2018 interview with an Arizona news outlet, her brother said she wanted to remain on the cattle ranch, the family cattle ranch, where she was born and raised. Guys, back over to you.
Well, Ronnie, there's always a campus connection. May her soul rest in peace. Next on Talking Points, GOP presidential hopefuls speak out on the Affordable Care Act, their plans, and what America thinks about it. Next.
There's one thing you can never have sex without. It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Let me ask you about Obamacare. Former President Trump said he wants to repeal and replace Obamacare, something he tried and failed to do when he was president. You were in Congress at the time. If you were president, would it be your plan to try to repeal and replace Obamacare, something you voted to eliminate 3 times?
Well, you're right. President Trump promised that he would repeal and replace Obamacare, and he didn't do it. And that was a promise that he made a lot of times.
What would you do, Governor? What would you
costs
do?
have continued to go up. Well, but I think it's important to point out he's running on a lot of the things he campaigned on in 2016.
For the 3rd straight election cycle, Republican presidential hopefuls are saying they plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. You just heard from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis say he will implement a better health care plan than the Affordable Care Act.
But this is something that Trump has been saying since 2015, and this is a debate Republicans have ditched for the last few years on the campaign trail. But comments from these GOP hopefuls have sparked conversations on both sides of the aisle. But what does America actually think about its current health care plan? Let's take a look. You can see clearly an important issue up there. Yeah. You see many of them saying very important. You see a few of them saying most important there. Now, we've explored what the most important issues are in the 2024 race here on Talking Points this entire semester, but healthcare still remaining one of those very important issues, Chile.
And it goes through so many different facets, right? We're on a college campus. Obviously, there's a lot of stress here. A lot of people not only concerned about their physical health, but their mental health as well. Again, in a lot of these places, a lot of Republican-dominated places, prescription drug costs, and especially the battle with opioids and a lot of that stuff, all of that stuff is important in a lot of these places. And it's a debate to be had, but I think one of the interesting things right now, you look at the Republican base, you look at a lot of people in the Republican Party, people from West Virginia, people from Ohio. These are people that aren't doing the best economically, and I don't know how you tell some of them with some of this kind of pitch to try and get rid of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, whether that's going to help them be more in support of you or not.
Absolutely. And you mentioned some of the nuances of healthcare there still being a political issue. You talk about, you've seen the Biden administration multiple times attempt to lower prescription drug costs. That's one of the things that they've been pushing on social media. That's one of the things that Biden has given speeches about. They've supported companies like Eli Lilly that have lowered prescription drug costs. But, you know, the issue as a whole, I think we're going to start to see this being another one of those issues that Republicans don't want to take on because they know that it might not be as popular as they think it is. It might be popular within the primary or maybe within the party, but in a general election, that stuff looks like it's not going to play as well. We saw Nikki Haley sort of dodge a question about abortion recently, saying, you know, she said she's pro-life. She's appealing to the base, but she was real, and she said that an abortion ban, a national abortion ban, is not realistic.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see all of this play out. I'm not sure what the next move is. I'm really not.
I'm not either, Chile. But hey, that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. for this entire semester. This will be my last show this year. I'm headed to New York City next semester. And with that, I just wanted to extend a thank you to all of our fantastic seniors, including our executive producer, Ben Schiller, executive producing his last show at Talking Points. He's been doing it for 2.5 years, as well as my co-anchor, Chilekasi, Adele. Chile, thanks for everything.
Thank you, Jake. And Ben and I have been kind of the old heads on the show. I guess I'm still here for another semester. But until then, good night. We'll see you.